So today, in the next coming 30 minutes, we will talk about the trends that we see are the most critical and what actions to take for RevOps and revenue generating roles for 2023. I hope that that is your expectations when you have signed up for this webinar. So what we're going to talk about today is one trend each from us, the panelists. And we are also thrilled to get to know you guys more. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We will try to take them as we are going forward. And also we will have an open discussion in the end. And we actually do have some questions from you guys already. So before we jump into the trends, Lotte, would you start to talk a little bit shortly about who you are and what your company is doing?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Lotte, and I'm a co-founder and SaaS lead here at Helion B2B. Helion B2B specializes in doing B2B marketing and sales for SaaS companies and manufacturing companies, and I'm in charge of everything SaaS related. I have previously worked as head of marketing in a SaaS company and also on the company side before that, and have worked on HubSpot for 8 years, so I know a lot about SaaS automations as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining and contributing with your expertise. Alexander, you are next.
Hello, Alexander Mason, worked the last 15 years within the SaaS industry in different revenue roles. Right now at Retriever, which is the market leader in the Nordics for communication, monitoring and insight services when it comes to earned content, so PR industry basically.
Thank you so much. Love to have you here. Mikko?
Hi everyone, Mikko is my name, one of the co-founders of Vainu. We're building a company database, and nowadays I work as a product manager for the global database. We have lots of RevOps people as users and customers, and that's why the whole topic is something that I like a lot.
Wonderful. And a spoiler alert, this will also be an episode from your podcast, right?
Exactly. So we have Don't Blame the CRM podcast where we talk about all things RevOps. So definitely we'll use this as one of the episodes.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining, Mikko. It's a great pleasure. And me, myself, my name is Wilma. I'm one of the co-founders to vloxq CPQ. We are a CPQ tool that is connected to the rest of your ecosystem and non-depending on what CRM or ERP that you are using. And my background is that I've been working on companies scaling fast, such as Upsales, GetAccept within sales and partnerships. So I'm really thrilled about today's discussion. So what will we actually do today, guys? We will talk about our top trends, right? So we will talk about this and this and this. And of course, have the open discussion that we already talked about. So now, Lotte, all over to you. Go ahead with your trend.
Yeah, so my trend is that you need to integrate your SaaS platform to your CRM to leverage the power of product-led growth. So in a lot of SaaS companies, you will have been working a lot with sales-led growth, and now a lot of SaaS companies are looking towards to actually have their product build the growth for them. And the goal here is actually to reduce a lot of friction and to focus on the customer experience, right? So if you are a SaaS company and you're utilizing both freemium and free trials models on your SaaS platform, then you can actually collect a lot of data to leverage the power of PLG. So if you integrate your SaaS platform, let's say you have a freemium model that you build your SaaS around, then you can integrate that to your CRM and you can start utilizing some of the data. So let's see that you can see when was the first login as a freemium, then you can build activation flows based on automation. You can also see what was the recent login. So you can see if there has been any platform activity, then you can do reactivation flows if you have a lot of freemiums that don't really make it to the activation part of the freemium subscription, right? And then you can also set up different tier limits. So I work with a lot of different SaaS companies, and what we have done with some of these freemium models is that we have set up tier limits where we then can prompt to paid upgrades. So let's say that you work with translation software and you have a freemium model where people can go in and get words translated, or they can build content themselves, and then they can translate it or do localization. And then in the freemium model, they have 5,000 words of translation. So if we have this tier limit built in, then we can build automated flows actually to prompt the users that they're soon ready to a paid upgrade. Then you can also utilize all this data for lead scoring. So which of your freemiums are closer to being ready to upgrade. And of course, you can also build specific in-app product tours based on where they already been inside the product. So that's a lot of the wins for really integrating your SaaS platform with your CRM. There is, of course, also some pitfalls. So if you want to transition to product-led growth, it will be a hard change for some companies due to some legacy culture for sales, because now we need to sell on the terms of the user instead of on the terms of the salespeople, right? And then, of course, there is the pitfall of product development not being able to keep up. So if you want to build everything based on your product, and your product needs to be what is actually driving the sales, then you also need to be heading up the game when it comes to product development. And then, of course, if you're building a freemium model, you need to go all the way and give everything until your tier limit. So I see a lot of SaaS companies that build freemiums where they only give a little part of their product, but actually to utilize freemium, you need to give it all, and then you need to have the tier limits to work with instead, and then you can utilize that data to build some different flows.
I think there's one additional upside, which is that in today's world, I feel salespeople, they need to be really good at their products. They have to be product experts. And if you integrate that type of usage data into the CRM, and then that data basically defines when it's time for them to reach out and get involved, you have to understand the product, because you get very product specific KPIs. I'm just thinking, for example, our solution, you need to understand the API calls and what it actually means regarding the integrations. You need to know what are the specific features, if those are the ones we track in the CRM, and those are the ones that sort of trigger the sales action. So I think that's an additional upside if you integrate usage data into CRM.
Exactly.
Alexander, do you have any point of view? I see you're thinking at least. Do you have some thoughts about this?
I actually disagree with Mikko. I think today's sales reps need to be brilliant storytellers, because the product will change so often. So if they're going to be product knowledgeable, when I have looked at my sales reps, I can see that sales reps that are good storytellers their deals are 3 times bigger than my best product sellers, because the storytellers sell to the budget holders, and the product sellers sell to the users. That's just my experience.
Interesting point of view.
I think there's also a part of thinking enterprise sales or not, because product-led growth is really great to cover like mid-market and up. But if we want to do enterprise sales, we will still need some really skilled salespeople, but we need those salespeople to leverage the data to become the great storytellers, right?
Okay, we have to move on to your trend, Mikko. But thank you so much. And thank you for not agreeing with each other. That is great. So Mikko.
Yes. So from siloed ops to centralized ops, that's the trend. And what it means, also a little bit like Lotte did. I think I come with SaaS, software as a service background, so this applies to SaaS companies mainly. But I feel that lots of companies are going through sort of the same journey and same steps when they create RevOps. Most of the companies already have sales ops in place, and that's typically a function that is focusing on mainly new business, trying to optimize the new business process and implementing playbooks and following up that people use the CRM the right way. Quite often, the first sales ops person is the one who was pretty good at sales or really good at sales, but especially was really good at using the CRM and sort of following the playbook. So then you have sales ops in place. And then I think on the marketing side, when teams started to grow and you brought in growth marketeers and growth hacking people, at some point, maybe without you even noticing it, someone was sort of putting a lot of focus on data and analytics, and then you sort of had marketing ops in place. And then CFO often had someone who was really good at Excel, like analyzing lots of numbers, and that role started to expand into more go-to-market related topics as well. They started thinking about pricing and conversion and all these topics. And then you sort of have finance ops in place. And I think the last one is customer success. So CS people, when they saw that new business people have their own sales ops person who is helping them out with data and playbooks and implementing new things, they started asking that, hey, we also need someone who is focusing on CS ops. And then that's typically the sort of the fourth siloed ops function. And I think nowadays, lots of companies are putting these 4 individuals or 4 teams under one umbrella, and that's revenue ops. I don't think that the name of the team is always RevOps. In the US, it is. In the Nordics, it might be something different, but I think most companies are following that path, especially in SaaS. And I think it's a trend, and there's most likely an interesting reason behind it, because you can then look at the whole revenue journey and not just sub-optimize one part of the customer journey. So I think that's one of the trends, and also my suggestion for most companies to do it that way.
Alexander, you've been working on both the Swedish and the US market and the global market. What's your point on this?
I fully agree with Mikko here. And I think another way to look at it is, if I look at from a Retriever's perspective, we have been very successfully in growing local businesses organically, but that has made us into silos when it comes to countries, where we're maximizing the revenue in each country. And the world isn't countries, it's digital today. So we need to begin to look at it from a whole company view as well. So that's another aspect of it, but it's more just saying that it's the same trend.
I think it's a really good point that those silos sometimes are not departments, but they can be also countries. I think it's a very good point.
How is your view on breaking down the silos, Mikko, to centralize the ops?
Yeah, I think there's lots of sort of trends that are supporting it, that why it makes sense. PLG, product-led growth, is one, because you start getting a lot more data. And then also in these days, this year, everybody talks about the importance of retention and existing customers. So I think CFOs and chief revenue officers and CEOs, they just feel that we can't just optimize new business or CS or marketing. We need to see the whole picture. I think then it helps if you have ideally not too many different tools where you orchestrate all this. I know your customers, Lotte, they do this mainly in HubSpot platform, and you can do most of this ops stuff in HubSpot or in Salesforce and other solid CRMs. But of course, it's a lot of hard work. One additional thing is that I think this opens up lots of exciting opportunities for more senior people to join SaaS companies. I think there will be lots of RevOps professionals who come with management consulting background. And maybe before RevOps, yes, some management consultants joined strategy teams and maybe CFO office, but I think there's going to be lots of people joining from those companies, and they will join fast growing SaaS businesses and sort of create the RevOps function for them.
Yeah, very interesting point of view. Thank you so much for that. And we all know that, Alexander, you are doing a lot of the stuff we are talking about today. And now we are curious about your trend.
So basically, to speaking Swedish, I'm a little bit humble and say that there's very many ways to row. But if we look at Retriever, we have chosen a strategy that is customer-centric, and you need to pick a strategy and stick to it because it takes time to implement the strategy. So many of our competitors are global, and they have more developers than us, and they have more sales reps than us, and it's hard to compete on their terms. So what we can do is that we can have a better knowledge about the Nordic market than our global competitors. And by better knowledge, I mean that we need to look at the customer surveys, the user data of the interface, our sales data, our competitor data for the Nordics, and also add our knowledge of the Nordic industry trends, etc. Because we have more customers, at least Retriever, because we're market leader in the Nordic, than our global competitors. So as long as we leverage the data and focus on that, we can outcompete our global competitors, even though we have less resources. But with that said, we don't want to turn into data sort of robots. Our customers love our staff, and we need to have that kind of middle ground where we let people be people and interact with other people in the best possible way at the right moments and not create robots. And to figure that out, that's something that's pretty hard. But if we get it right, if we interact with the customers at the right point in the right way and provide the data and the product that they need, then we have profitable growth that is really hard to compete with. The Nordic market is small in comparison to global, so we need to take care of the customers we have. We need to have high retention. People in the Nordics speak to each other, so you can't just sell something, move on, and sell to the next. You need to deliver on your promises.
Lotte, what's your take on this?
I think that what we all have been covered now is that it all boils down to data, right? So when you talk B2B, it's really complex buying journeys, and that means that the sales cycle is also longer. So you need to utilize the data to give the best customer experience. But B2B is also about trust, and it's about building relationships. So I like the part that Alexander said about we need still, they like to interact with us. We need to build the relationships as well. And the data can really help you map out that buyer's journey. So I think data, one thing you need to, have the whole buyer's journey from marketing to sales to service. And what I would recommend is that you share the same system because then you don't have any broken ends. And then of course, we need to figure out when do we reach out, when do we talk to our customers at the right time in the buyer's journey.
I think this also highlights the role of RevOps or whoever sort of is the CRM main admin, assuming that CRM is one of the places where you store that customer data. Because whatever you track, whatever properties or data fields you create in CRM, basically those are the options you have when it comes to creating campaigns and for sales and marketing. So I think there's lots of power and also big responsibility that lies in the hands of whoever oversees CRM and decides what type of data is collected and stored in the CRM.
Yeah, I would say like CRM is the backbone of doing really great RevOps, right? Because CRM is also where you get the feedback between the different departments. So we can give, if we keep handing over SQLs that are not really a good fit or not matching the ICP, then the sales department can give feedback and saying it's a unqualified lead and give a reason why it's an unqualified lead. But also if we have deals that are being created and we are losing them, we need to start tracking why we are losing deals. And even if we're losing deals on features, we need to give that feedback back to product development and say, we need to do this integration, we need to do this plug-in. And once it's done, we can give that feedback to marketing, and then they can start building campaigns to those companies that they actually lost due to this integration or plug-in. So it's all around, again, the data and the feedback and the centralized way of working.
I think just one point there as well. I think we need to extend the customer journey to also include the renewal, because once we get to renew customers,
so important,
up there to 95, 96%, then we're building a really scalable business.
Good last words for your trend, Alexander. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. Now I'm super nervous to trying to contribute in this high-level discussion, at least in my sense, but I'll try. And my trend would be not that innovative maybe, but we do have a switch focus from growth by all costs to risk reduction and profitability enabling actions. We see that we have a lot of VC firms, we have who have invested a lot in company that's scaling fast. We see big hands off and turns off, and we see also how the market has been really struggling for tech for some while now. So this isn't something new. I'm super aware of that. But what is the actions that what we do see and what we have to take to ensure that we can continuing growing and maybe switching actually to something more sound and a sound business where profit actually is something that we're striving for. So a couple of things here that I see that we did earlier and what we're doing now is that it was much more new business focus and it was onboarding new people, it was buying new tools. Now we see much more, especially when we talk to customers implementing CPQ. You are going from having or you're going to, at least I should say, to have a much more smooth journey, both internally and externally. And that more or less hopefully sums everything up that we have been talking about today, that we have this customer obsession. We need to have it. And that means that we are asking, should we really buy this too? How could we reduce risk within our full operation? How can we ensure that we minimize wrongs and not only onboard the new people to engage our colleagues that have been working for us for years and making sure we get the maximize of them, and also a little bit what you talked about just now, Alex, the renewals. So well, Alex, what do you think about this? What is your point of view?
I think that there's not neither or when we talk about onboarding customers or onboarding people internally. I think if you can't onboard people great internally, you won't onboard people externally. So I think it's a win-win situation. And going back to what Lotte said about the backbone, I really think a good CRM system with a plug and play vloxq CPQ so that we sell the right product, so that we know which product we've actually sold, just makes onboarding internal people better, but also getting customers and users on board.
What I'm trying to, what my point is we're switching much more to quality. And I wouldn't say that it was quantity before, but at least now quality is very important. What would you say, Lotte, about this?
Yeah, I agree. And I think it also comes down to ways of working, processes and stuff, back to the CRM as the backbone, right? So I have been working, of course, with a lot of SaaS companies. And I think that Mikko and I discussed it on a podcast a few weeks back, that he asked me, so in all the CRM systems you have worked with the last 2 years, how many has been in good shape? And I would say 2 out of 10. So ways of working and really processes, and how are we, how do we want to build this journey both internally but also externally for our clients, and how do we want to nurture them, which data do we want to catch, which data do we want to work with, and how do we actually enable that data to grow, right? Because you can really grow if you have all the right processes put in place. But every time you do something in a new way without documenting it or testing it, it can end up, screwing up some of the things that you have already put in place. So back to really optimizing for growth, I think really determines the ways of working and the processes as well.
I had a chance to visit SaaSter, which is SaaS community meetup. It was last fall in the US, and I think we were interviewing people there. I think almost all of them, they said that like the trend back then was that it's basically switching from growth at all costs to growth at reasonable cost. And if that's the trend, I think then it actually has big impact on the role of RevOps, because then you need to start looking at really what is the ICP, like, so that you sell to the very best customers. You need to make the most out of every ICP lead, meaning that you need to most likely pay even more attention to lead scoring and all these processes. So I think that also means that RevOps is then putting more focus on quality, just like you said, and not just trying to optimize quantity, whatever the cost might be.
I think
Thank
it's
you.
also about, reducing the friction. So reducing the friction for the customer as well, especially talking SaaS. Like you need to reduce the friction in your free trial, in your freemium. You need to give it all away, let them really test, compare, use the product, and then they will pay if they have a good experience. So every time you put a paywall up, or every time they need to unlock a new feature and they can't do it, you're just you're ruining their experience inside the product. So you also need to be brave, and you need to, if you trust in your product, you need to put it out there.
And Alex, I know that you and I are more from another point of view, PLG point of view. We love PLG. I dare to say that for both of us, but maybe you have another point of view, a bit of this.
Not really. I'm always thinking about what you said. I'm a little bit slow. So I'm coming back to what you said about growth at all costs or not. And if I look at that, Retriever has always grown organically and with its own money. So for us, it has always been important to grow cost efficiently. But it's really hard when you compete against competitors that don't need to grow profitable. And we can definitely see that the competitive market is harder now to find new money, so that our competitors are beginning to price it so that it actually makes sense, which means that it becomes a lot easier for us, or a lot easier might not be the correct word, but a more level playing field.
I love something that I learned at GetAccept: do more with less. And if I would to summarize my trend with something, that is what I would like people to remember: to do more with less and erase frictions and create more smoothness. And thank you for contributing to my trend. And we have some questions actually from the audience, and we only have a few minutes left. We have 4 trends here, and I know that everyone looking at the screen right now are reading really rapidly, guessingly, and also when you listen to the podcast, you're wondering what are the questions. So should we choose at least one of these? The word is free. Would anyone like to answer some of these questions?
I can start. There's a question: how to book meetings without using the phone or email. I landed a meeting this week simply by being active in one of the communities. There's lots of online communities. Quite often they are Slack groups. For example, I'm part of quite a few RevOps communities, and then there's lots of discussion going on. And if you contribute and if you engage, every now and then there's also a business opportunity. And then of course you have the person on Slack. So then you're not using phone or email, but one of these community tools. So that's one way of doing it. And then of course the whole PLG, product-led growth, providing the app as a free tool, so that you have lots of users, and then you use the usage data, just like Lotte said, and that's the moment when you reach out, and you can do it, for example, as an in-app chat instead of phone and email.
Really brilliant. Lotte, do you want to answer one of the trends? I know that we haven't really prepared for this, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on anything of it.
Yeah, so there is one that says how to develop recurring revenue in a SaaS business. And of course, almost all SaaS business, they are looking for a really great monthly recurring revenue or annual recurring revenue, right? So of course, I would back again to the PLG. If you want to develop really great recurring revenue, you need to, of course, invest in your product development. So you need to build out new features, new plugins, new integrations, because if you want people to continue to use your product, right, you need to develop ongoing on your product. That is one thing. Also, second, if you want to develop really great recurring revenue, you need to let people onto your product, like a really great freemium or free trial, so they can start using the product, and then really also get them to love the product, and then they will upgrade because they need it in their everyday life, right? But if you want to do it you need to do it in the right way, and in the right way is to give it all, and then start working with some tier limits that will enable you to actually build this recurring revenue. Because I think that a lot of SaaS companies have built freemium models, but they haven't really thought about how to turn the freemiums into paying customers, or how to use the data to build activation or reactivation flows. So there is also another question about setting up the right KPIs. And if we're talking about freemiums, one really important KPIs is, of course, how many freemiums you have, but actually how many are active, because you can have a lot of freemiums without having active freemiums. So back to enabling the data to build reactivation, activation flows, upgrade flows, and so forth. Yeah.
Alexander, I know that you guys work a lot about increasing your NPS, and we have a question here regarding KPIs and key results that's usually associated with RevOps, it says. Do you have any thoughts about this question?
Yeah, I actually do. I don't think there's a silver bullet. There's not one KPI that fits all companies. You need to go back to your strategy. And as you said, we at Retriever have chosen to be customer-centric. So then it becomes really important for us to follow how happy our customers are with our services. With that said, there is one thing as a RevOps officer that I probably always have a little bit of a look at. That is how many customer meetings do our sales reps have with our customers, prospects, etc. Because at the end of the day, meetings make deals. You need to talk to people, you need to interact with them. So that's probably what I would say.
Can I quickly add my 2 cents on the topic? I think RevOps KPIs, I don't think most RevOps teams have their own unique separate KPIs. I think they mainly follow company KPIs, and that's why they actually report to CFO, CEO, or Chief Revenue Officer, because they look at the whole revenue journey. If I had to pick one, I would say for SaaS companies that it's net revenue retention, and then optimize that. And if you do a good job and you can have an impact on that, positive impact on that, you're doing a good job, I feel.
Thank you so much, everyone. The time has unfortunately run out. I hope that you that had listened to this live or in a podcast show or in a recording, I hope that you got what you wished for. And thank you so much for joining. And thank you, Mikko, Lotte, and Alexander, not the least, of course, to sharing your expertise.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.